Welcome to my channel. Today, I'm going to share a very emotional and heart-touching story called, The Letter Under the Pillow. This story is about a mother's sacrifice, a son's realization, and the true meaning of love and family. If you love emotional stories with deep life lessons, then this video is for you. So relax, listen carefully, and let's begin the story. Sometimes, the people who love us the most are the ones we understand the least. This is the story of a boy who learned the true meaning of love, only after almost losing it. The Letter Under the Pillow. It was a cold, rainy evening in a small village. The wind moved softly through the trees, and the sound of rain touched every roof in the neighborhood. Inside a tiny old house, a woman named Clara sat near the window with a warm cup of tea in her hands. Her face looked tired, but her eyes were full of love. She looked at the clock again and again. "Daniel should be home by now," she whispered quietly. Daniel was her 16-year-old son. Every evening, he returned home before sunset. But that day was different. Clara stood near the door and listened carefully. Finally, she heard footsteps outside. The door opened slowly. Daniel walked in with wet clothes and a tired face. "You were late," Clara said softly. "I had extra classes," Daniel replied without looking at her. Clara smiled gently. "I made your favorite soup." "I'm not hungry," Daniel answered quickly as he walked toward his room. Clara's smile slowly disappeared. She stood silently for a moment and then returned to the kitchen. Daniel closed his bedroom door and dropped his school bag on the floor. He was not really angry. He was simply tired of life. After his father died 3 years earlier, everything had changed. His mother worked day and night in a small tailoring shop to pay for his school. Sometimes she skipped meals to save money. Sometimes she worked even when she was sick. But Daniel never noticed how much she suffered. He only noticed what they did not have. No big house, no expensive phone, no motorcycle, no rich lifestyle like his classmates. Daniel lay on his bed and looked at the ceiling. "Why is our life like this?" he asked himself. At the same time, Clara quietly folded clothes in the next room. Her hands moved slowly because of pain, but she continued working. Near midnight, Clara coughed heavily. Daniel heard the sound but ignored it. The next morning, Daniel woke up late. He rushed into the kitchen. "Why didn't you wake me up?" he shouted. Clara placed breakfast on the table. "You looked tired," she replied calmly. Daniel became more irritated. "I'm tired because this life is tiring." Clara remained silent. "I need money for the school trip tomorrow," Daniel added. Clara's face changed slightly. "How much?" 2,000 rupees. Clara looked down for a moment. I will try. Daniel sighed loudly. You always say that. He grabbed his bag and left the house. Clara stood near the door watching him disappear down the road. Then she slowly opened an old metal box. Inside it were a few folded notes, some coins, and a photograph of her husband. She touched the photo gently. Our son is growing up, she whispered sadly. At the tailoring shop, Clara worked harder than usual. She stitched clothes without resting. Her fingers shook from weakness, but she continued. Late in the evening, the shop owner noticed her pale face. You should go home early today, he said. I'm fine, Clara answered with a weak smile. But she was not fine. That night, she returned home carrying a small envelope. Daniel was sitting on the sofa looking at his phone. Without saying anything, Clara handed him the envelope. There is the money for your trip. Daniel opened it quickly. Only this. It is all I could arrange today. Daniel looked frustrated. Everyone else has better things than me. Clara stayed quiet. You don't understand anything, Daniel continued angrily. Clara stayed quiet. You don't understand anything, Daniel continued angrily. Tears filled her eyes, but she wiped them away quickly. The next morning, Daniel left for school without speaking. Hours later, while Clara worked alone at home, she suddenly felt dizzy. She tried to stand up but collapsed onto the floor. The neighbor heard the sound and rushed inside. Clara, she shouted, but Clara did not answer. The neighbor immediately called an ambulance. At school, Daniel laughed with his friends during lunch break. Suddenly, his phone rang. It was the neighbor. Daniel, come to the hospital quickly. His heart froze. Why? What happened? It's your mother. Daniel dropped the phone and ran out of school without another word. Rain poured heavily as he reached the hospital. His shoes were wet, and his breathing became fast. He entered the emergency room with fear in his eyes. The doctor walked toward him. Are you Clara's son? Daniel nodded. She is very weak. She needs rest and proper treatment. Daniel looked through the glass window. His mother lay quietly on the hospital bed. For the first time in years, Daniel truly saw her. The tired face, the weak hands, the pale skin, the silent pain. Guilt slowly filled his heart. He remembered every rude word he had spoken. Every moment he ignored her love. Every complaint. Tears rolled down his cheeks. That night, Daniel sat beside her bed silently. Clara slowly opened her eyes. Daniel, she whispered weakly. I'm here, Mom. You should go home and rest. Daniel shook his head. No. Clara smiled softly. You have school tomorrow. I don't care. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Daniel quietly asked, why didn't you tell me you were sick? Clara looked at him lovingly. You already had enough worries. Daniel lowered his head and cried. I'm sorry, Mom. Clara gently touched his hair. A mother never keeps anger in her heart. Daniel held her hand tightly. It felt cold and fragile. The next few days changed him completely. He woke up early. He cooked simple meals. He cleaned the house. After school, he visited the hospital every day. One evening, while searching for clean clothes at home, Daniel found something under Clara's pillow. It was an old folded letter. He opened it carefully. The handwriting belonged to his father. Dear Clara, if you are reading this, I may no longer be beside you. But I know one thing for sure. You will protect our son with all your strength. Daniel may not understand your sacrifices today, but one day he will. He held it against his chest and sat on the floor for a long time. That night, he looked at his mother differently. She looked older now, but her smile remained warm. Daniel hugged her tightly. You worked too hard for me, he whispered. Clara smiled softly. That is what parents do. Daniel looked at her with tears in his eyes. No, he replied gently. That is what angels do. Outside the hospital window, the rain began to fall softly once again. But this time, their hearts were finally at peace.